So in this video we're going to look at setting up a NVR, a network video recorder, for a IP CCTV system using a Raspberry Pi 5. This is the model with 4 GB of RAM. The one thing I will say is it's well worth buying one of these active cooler heat sinks for it. They're only about £5 extra, and it makes a drastic difference to its performance. As an example, running it without this and running it with it, putting it on, it will drop the CPU temperature by about 25 degrees Celsius, and at 85 degrees Celsius the CPU will throttle itself back and you'll get much worse performance. And without this heatsink on, you will quickly reach that limit. So it's well worth paying the extra and getting one of those. The software that we're going to be using is BigBrother, which you can find at bigbrothercctv.org. This is open source under the GPL3. It runs on Linux. Pre-built packages available for Debian, including the Raspberry Pi version of Debian, RPM for Red Hat and Rocky, and a PKG for FreeBSD. There's a link there to the GitHub repository if you want to look at the source code. There's some older tutorial videos here which predate this one. They're using a very early version of the software, and there's a plain text and PDF version of the user guide as well, which is also installed with the package when you install the software. It's written in Python and also uses some shell scripts, so it's very portable. Okay, so I'm currently logged into the Pi via SSH. There's been no configuration done on this other than setting the IP addresses. I've got the main LAN IP address, and I've also set up a VLAN tag, VLAN2, with its own IP address. This is the VLAN that the cameras are on. You don't have to have the cameras on a separate VLAN, but on this particular installation all the CCTV cameras are on their own VLAN, so we've got the Pi on both the main LAN and the CCTV VLAN. If we run a which FFmpeg, we can see that FFmpeg is not installed, so the first thing we need to do is install that. Okay, so if we now run FFmpeg, we can see that that's installed, version 5.1. I'm now going to go to the BigBrother website, and I'm going to copy the link for the .deb package, and I'm going to use wget download it. It's there in my home directory, and I'm going to use epkg-I for install that package. Okay, so if we now have a look under USR local, we'll see that we've got a BigBrother directory. And inside that we've got the program itself, and we've also got a sample configuration file for the BigBrother daemon and a sample camera file, which we need to edit both of these. So I'm going to go into the main configuration file. The first entry in here is camera conf, and it defines where our camera configuration file is. That's the default path, and we can leave that as it is. Log file, default log file, var log, bigbrother.log, we can leave that as it is. path to the ffmpeg command, user bin ffmpeg. That should be correct. The user that we want BigBrother to run at, the package has set up a BigBrother user for us on the system, so that's correct. Allow new file from web is true. This just allows you to click a button on the live view interface to start a new recording. I'm going to set that to false for the time being. We don't need that feature. I'm just going to check that ffmpeg is actually in user bin ffmpeg. Yes, it is, so that's fine. The next file we need to edit is the camera configuration file. This has an entry for each camera, one camera per line, and it's in the format of camera name, the URL to connect to the camera, the group name for the camera, the recording mode, the mirroring mode, where we want it to record to, and the container type. So I'm going to go through these in order and explain what each one is as I set up each camera. So each camera has to have a name that's unique and it can't contain any spaces. For this installation, this sample one is actually correct. We've got a camera, first camera is going to be called backgate. This is the correct URL for it. We're connecting to it using RTSP. This is its IP address on port 554. Each camera needs to be put into a group, and the group name again mustn't contain any spaces. In this scenario we're going to have a group name of back, which is the cameras at the rear of the premises. At a later date we might add additional cameras and set up a group name of front for cameras at the front. Recording mode, D for day or C for by camera. What this basically means is, if we look at the user guide, we can see that the directory structure that we're going to set up in a minute for doing the recordings has to contain a by day directory with a directory for each day of the week, and a by camera directory with a directory for each group name. So if we set it to record by day, it's going to put the recordings into the appropriate day of the week folder for us, and it will automatically delete those after 7 days. The alternative is to use recording mode by camera, whereby it will put the recording into the appropriate group name folder, and it won't delete those, it will just leave them there indefinitely. So you then need to write either a cron job or have a separate script of some sort that manages those files to stop them getting out of hand. So we're going to leave that as by day. We're going to leave for the time being, I'm going to turn the mirroring mode off. I'll come back later on and explain what it is. I'm going to set that to a star to turn the mirroring mode off. This is where we're going to set up our recording directory, so that's fine. And the container type is MP4. This camera delivers MPEG-4 video, so we can leave that as MP4. Our second camera we're going to call back path. Its URL is going to be very similar. Different IP address, same port, same group. Again, I'm going to record by day. We're going to leave the mirroring off for the time being. We want it recording in the same place, and it's an MP4 container. So those are the two cameras that we're going to use. Realised I made a typo here, didn't I? CCTV recordings. So if we go back to our user guide, you can see that we need to set up this directory structure, and we also need to set the ownership and permissions on them. So create the directory, top level directory. We'll create a by day directory and a by camera directory. Under by camera, we're going to create a directory for our group, and under day, we're going to create a directory for each day of the week. Now, if we have a look at our user guide again, we'll see that the ownership of the recording directory tree should be BigBrother and group user CCTV viewers. So if we look under there, we can see our directory is there. So we'll do change owner recursive we need to do the user first, don't I? It's BigBrother CCTV viewers, CCTV recordings, and we also need to change the mode 750. And the other thing it tells us we need to do is we need to set the set group ID bit on it. So one thing I didn't mention, I said that the package had set up a user BigBrother for us. One thing I didn't say was that if we have a look in the group file, we can see that it's also set up a CCTV writers and a CCTV viewers group for us as well. So those are the two groups we're using. So at this point we can start BigBrother up and it will start recording. So we do systemctl start BigBrother D. And if we now go into our recording directory by day, today's Friday, we can see that it started recording. Backdate, today's date 14/12, which is when it just started, and likewise backpath, today's date 14/12. So that will record up to 1500 hours, and then it will start a new recording. So it will start a new recording on the hour, every hour. Now that's all very good, but you probably want to be able to access these recording files on a PC with a graphical interface so you can actually look at them. So we're going to set up Samba so that we can access them from a PC. So we'll do apt get install Samba. by default it has created a Samba configuration file at etc.samba.smb.conf. We're going to overwrite that with our own custom file, which we're going to take from the user guide. So in our user guide, down at the bottom we've got an appendix, remote access to recordings using Samba, and we've got a sample Samba configuration file. We're going to copy that I'm going to take all this out. I'm going to paste that in. Now, this sample we need to make some changes for. The IP address that we want it to listen on, we need to set that to our main LAN IP address, which in this case is 253.215. And in here, that's the path where we're recording to. You'll notice that it's going to allow anybody in the CCTV viewers group to access it. That's fine, we can save that. We can then do a systemctl enable SMBD and a systemctl start SMBD, and then there's one other thing we need to do, which is that the username database for Samba is separate to the username database that Linux uses. So we need to do the smb password command -a for add, and then we need to add each Linux user that we want to be able to access the Samba share. So I'm going to put my username in, set the password, and then we also need to add that user to the CCTV viewers group. So if we go into the group file, and we've got CCTV viewers, add the username on the end there. So if we go to a file browser window on a PC and we type in the address bar //192.168.253.215, prompts us for our Linux username and password, and we can then see our CCTV recordings file share. We can open that. We've got a by day and by camera. By day, Friday. There's our recording files. The other thing that we might want to do is to map this as a Windows network drive so that we can access it more easily. If we right click on the CCTV recordings folder here, we can go to map network drive. We can then set a letter for it, click finish, and it's now mapped as a network drive. We can see it here in Windows Explorer, CCTV recordings, drive S, so we've got it for handy access. So that's fine for recording, but obviously you might want to look at the live view of the camera. Now, if your cameras are on the same subnet as your PC, you can connect to them directly using something like VLC, but it's not very convenient to have to keep opening separate VLC instances for every camera, and if they're on a different VLAN and you've got no direct routing between the VLANs, then you can't do that. So BigBrother provides a facility called mirroring, which allows it to take the stream from the camera and restream it as an HTTP live streaming HLS stream, which you can then access via a web browser. So to set that up, we're going to install the Apache web server. So we'll do apt-get install Apache 2. And we'll also install the Apache PHP module, which we need. So we'll do apt-get install lib apache 2-mod-php. And if we now point our web browser at the Pi's IP address, we can see we've got the Apache default page. That by default is in var www html. So we're just going to check that PHP is working. So we'll create a file under there, which we'll call test.php, and we're just going to put a little snippet of PHP code in here, where we'll call the PHP info function, and if we now try loading that, we can see that PHP is working. So we're all set up and ready to go. So if we look in user local BigBrother, we can see that there is in here a mirror web root directory, which is where BigBrother will put all of its files for the web interface for doing HTTP streaming. So what we need to do is configure our Apache web server to serve up that directory. Now, we can either set it up as a new virtual site under Apache, but as it's all that this system is going to be serving out, we're not got any other websites on here, we can edit the default. So if we have a look in etc. Apache 2, we've got sites enabled, and we've also got sites available. And if we do a long listing, we can see that the entry in sites enabled is actually a symlink to the file in sites available. So if we have a look inside this configuration file, we need to change the document root here to user local BigBrother mirror web root. The other thing we need to do is add the username that Apache is running on into the CCTV viewers group. So if we go into the etc group file, we've got here CCTV viewers. We need to add www-data, which is the Apache username, into that. We also need to do the same thing here on CCTV writers. Restart Apache. Now with that, in that configuration, if we try to connect to our Pi again, we'll get 403 forbidden. In order to rectify that, what we need to do is go back into this file and add some extra configuration down here, which is a directory option. Directory user local BigBrother mirror web root will disable indexing and then require all granted, allow override all. Save that, restart Apache, and now if we refresh, we get the web mirroring interface from BigBrother. Now at the moment there's no cameras on there because we haven't yet told BigBrother to actually serve up any cameras, so we've just got an empty page. So what we now need to do is go back into our camera configuration file and configure each camera for doing mirroring. So we're going to edit user local BigBrother, BigBrother_camera.conf, our camera configuration file, and where here we've got a star under the mirroring column, we're now going to change that. We can either change it to HLS, which stands for HTTP live streaming, and by default that will stream at 10 megabits per second per camera, which is fine if you're on a LAN where you've got plenty of bandwidth. If however you're accessing this remotely and your upstream bandwidth is limited, if you're on a DSL line or something like that, you might want to restrict the bandwidth that it uses for each camera, so you can put a slash on the end and then specify the number of megabits, and that can range from 0.1 for 100 kilobits up to 20 megabits. So in this situation I'm going to set it to 2 megabits per camera, which is perfectly adequate for what we want. It will give us a nice clear picture. Come out of there and save that. We now need to do a systemctl restart BigBrother D. This will take it a few seconds to restart because it has to shut down all the existing recording processes and wait for them to terminate and then start it all up again. And now if we go to our web browser again and we refresh, we've now got a live view of both cameras. And the other thing I should point out here is that by default each camera is muted, but you can unmute them, and if the camera is configured to deliver sound, you will get the sound coming through. Likewise with the recordings I didn't mention before, if the camera is configured to deliver sound, then the recordings will have sound on them. We can make it full screen if we want to look at a specific one. The other thing to point out on here is that we've got show optional parameters. We can pass additional parameters in on the end of the address bar to do certain things. So for example, we can specify a camera name if we only want to show a specific camera. So if I do !, camera name equals _gate, then we just get that one camera. The other thing I need to point out, and this is mentioned here in the user guide, is that BigBrother doesn't provide any type of authentication or access control to the content of the mirror web root directory via HTTP. So if you want to restrict who can access the site via a web browser, then you'll need to look at configuring Apache or whatever web server you're using to do either HTTP basic or digest authentication, so it actually prompts for a username and password. There's plenty of guides out there on how to go about doing that. So that's recording and live view or mirroring with BigBrother running on a Raspberry Pi 5. It makes a very cost-effective NVR system.